to do about it. And by it, I mean the violence that we're seeing being inflicted on our neighbors, on our loved ones, and on ourselves. Masked agents abducting people from their homes, from their children's graduation ceremonies, from car washes, from workplaces, from immigration court. This is violence. Arresting graduate students for writing articles in defense of basic humanity in the face of genocide and keeping them from their families. This is violence. Deploying the National Guard to inflict violence on LA residents for protecting the community that they're supposed to serve. That is violence. Bosses exploiting their workers' immigration status and calling ICE to raid them to avoid paying workers' wages. This is violence. Hundreds of new agreements between ICE and law enforcement, local law enforcement agencies, with this task force model allowing police to serve as ICE agents. This is violence. And they have the audacity to call us the violent ones. But the systems that they're profiting from, the ones that dictate our choices, are the actual perpetrators of violence in our daily lives. The violent nature of poverty, of policing, of profit ruling over our housing, our healthcare, and our livelihoods. We have so many good reasons to feel rage and so many opportunities to rise. And the only tools that they have are violence. They have surveillance and we have care. We have looking out for each other, being a good neighbor. They have rubber bullets and tear gas. We have collective action. We have each other's backs. Violence will only win if we allow it, if we refuse to rise. The ways people are rising to meet injustice with solidarity is joyous, born from love. In many ways, it inspires and reaffirms what it means to be human in a world that seeks to divide us from each other. I've had family members tell me that they can't imagine wanting to hurt people who are just after el pan de cada día. There's a recognition of the fact that many of us are just trying to survive, and that shared struggle is worth defending. That's where solidarity is born. That's the shared experience we can nurture as we build a world where solidarity is the standard. Because no matter the issue that feels heavy in your heart right now, whether that's protecting immigrants from ICE raids, getting aid and a ceasefire for Gaza, fighting attacks against trans people, our fights are connected. And the best thing that we can do right now is to pick up the fight from wherever you are, even if you're afraid. So tonight's call is but a glimpse of the ways that you can do just that. We're going to talk about why organization is how we achieve justice, how we can resist and defend our people, and how solidarity is the only way to win. First, you'll hear from Alderman Anthony Quesada, representing Chicago's 37th Ward and a proud member of the Democratic Socialists of America. Then from Shuming Cheer, representing California's Sanctuary LA Coalition and also a proud member of DSA. We'll hear from DSA members Austin, Jen, and Sarai coming to you from LA and San Antonio about the work they're doing to keep ICE out of their communities. And finally, you'll hear from our International Migrant Rights Working Group co-chairs Marilia and Tristan about the campaign work DSA chapters are doing across the country and what support and resources available to you if you're not currently involved in the work. So let's get into it. First, we want to do a poll to figure out where you're joining us from. If you're already a member of DSA, if you're interested, that poll should be coming up shortly. Let us know. Are you a member? Are you not yet a member? Are you not yet a member but interested? We want to talk about why organization is super crucial in a moment like this, and one of the best things that we can do to fight the division that the ruling class is trying their hardest to continue. We'll give it a couple more seconds if folks can weigh in. And in the meantime, I'm going to pass it over to Anthony to talk a little bit about what's going on in Chicago.
Thank you so much, Christian. This is Anthony Joel Quesada. I am the alderman of Chicago's 35th Ward on Chicago's northwest side, and I'm so grateful to be with all of you this evening. I know that we're all very worried and afraid, but we're also driven by enormous and radical acts of love and compassion and solidarity. So I want to really ground us in the fact of what guides us in our work. I want to let you know about what happened in Chicago very briefly last Wednesday. I am a part of, and many of our socialist elected officials are members of rapid response networks, on the ground grassroots groups organized by local independent political organizations, neighborhood-based organizations, and other organizations across the city. And we were notified that a movement leader, actually, and longtime resident and immigrant, was detained when ICE actually sent out false texts to people who were under a supervision program to come in for a surprise check-in. When they came in for the surprise check-in, people were detained on site. Many of these people were parents, mothers, fathers who came with their children. And when they were detained, they had the people at the company and ICE and all the agencies had no sort of safety plan or continuity plan for their children who were there. So when we arrived on scene, because our rapid response network was mobilized, we saw children who were waiting outside alone, and community members were there taking care of them. It was absolutely devastating. We also saw local police there. Apparently, they had been called to, there was a police and distress call. They claimed to not be working with ICE. We're going to be doing an investigation to just have a better understanding of what went down. But folks, unfortunately, what we saw was extremely devastating. We saw about 12 people in handcuffs, mothers, fathers, community members who were taken out of this facility with their children, again, on the sidelines, crying, yelling out, "Mommy" and "Papi." The mothers crying out to be released and for help. And our community members we couldn't stop what was happening in the moment. And I have been doing rapid response deportation work for a really long time in my capacity as a community organizer, now in my capacity as an elected official. And what I saw last Wednesday was barbarism, as I just saw somebody write in the comment chat. It was devastating and it was traumatic. A number of kind of brutality and the kind of armed force that these agencies are engaged in separating people from our communities. And so what we're seeing across the nation right now is a lot of people who are morally outraged by what's happening, and they are organizing. They want to get organized. And that is why we need to stay organized. We need to stay organized at a national level. We need to stay organized at a state level, and we need to be organized at a block by block level. If you have a local independent political organization or a chapter of DSA that you have been engaged in with historically or have not been engaged with historically, now is the time. Now is the time to act on our solidarity. And also now is the time for our elected officials to act in solidarity with us. We just can't have empty platitudes. We need people out there who are going to be using their positions, using their power to not just attack Trump and say that he's wrong, but to do everything that they can to hold these agencies accountable and making sure that we're protecting and mobilizing resources and services for our family members, but also very importantly, to organize the working class. We need to be organizing folks in our workplaces, in our schools, and in our neighborhoods if we're going to be really fighting this deportation regime. Because remember, folks, we're only 5 months into this administration. We have a couple more years to go. We need to stay organized, we need to stay focused, and we need to be prepared for what's coming. But the guiding principle of what needs to solve all of that is solidarity. All we have is our solidarity. And an attack on our immigrant population is an attack on the entire working class. And so I stand in full solidarity with everyone who's on this call tonight. Thank you so much for being driven by your values and for wanting to build a country that belongs to all of us, not just some of us. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anthony, and for all the work that you and our other Alder people in Chicago are doing, as well as the Chicago chapter in defense of immigrants. As Anthony said, solidarity is important, organization is important. I am dropping the Join DSA link because according to the poll results, there are a number of you that are not members of DSA that are interested. And there are probably more folks that are trying to join. We've actually capped out our Zoom capacity at 500, which tells me this obviously is something that's very deeply felt in our circles, and we want to make sure that folks are plugged in to local efforts, plugged in and able to help. So I'm going to pass it to Shuming, who's going to talk about Glendale and beating ICE. So over to you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm so impressed that there's 500 of us on this call. So I'm Shuming, she, her pronouns. I'm a member of DSA LA and also part of the LA Sanctuary Coalition. And just wanted to preface this, and I'm sure all of you have been following what's happening in Los Angeles, but I just wanted to emphasize just how heavily militarized it's been, and the fact that ICE, CBP, DHS, FBI, so many agencies have been carrying out these raids armed with assault weapons, wearing military gear, etc. And so it really does feel like an invasion. I know many of you here are from Los Angeles, so you can have that palpable feeling too if you're close to Los Angeles. And in terms of the folks who were swept up, it's people who were at working at garment factories, warehouses, construction sites, car washes. So we're definitely talking about working class immigrants who are being targeted. So in light of all that's been happening, including the arrests at the courthouses, we found out about a week ago that as people were being arrested at different locations, they were being temporarily taken to the jail at Glendale City. Glendale is a city a little bit north of Los Angeles. And so that's when, at least for myself, it was the first time that I realized Glendale City actually has a contract with ICE. And this is a contract to house people who are already under ICE custody. It was signed in 2007, and under the contract, Glendale City gets $85 a day per person. So they're making, it's not a lot of money, but they are making money profiting from the misery of people who are facing deportations. So it was really shocking when we discovered that. We later discovered that just this year alone, Glendale has held 82 people for ICE. And so it's really unacceptable because the Sanctuary Coalition has worked on successful campaigns to make sure that we have sanctuary policies in Los Angeles, Burbank, and San Fernando. Many of the neighboring cities, such as Pasadena, also have protective policies for immigrants. So for Glendale to be in the completely opposite direction of actually trying to profit from housing people for ICE, again, was just really unacceptable. So we mobilized really quickly. We were prepared to go to Glendale City Council actually tonight, have folks there to give public comments as the first step in a very public campaign to expose them. And then we actually got extremely good news Sunday night. And this in part, I think, is due to the fact that a lot of residents in Glendale have been trying to highlight this issue for years, but it just got really publicly exposed recently. So Sunday night, the city manager of Glendale decided to voluntarily cancel the contract with ICE. And in the public messaging said that it's not a quote unquote political decision. It's just that at this moment, having that kind of relationship with ICE is going to bring a lot of attention to the city. So for whatever reason, they decided to do it. It was a good move on their part. We didn't have to then go through city council and have to go through a longer process to cancel the contract. So that is something locally that we feel good about. And again, it did take people really highlighting the issue, getting ready to mobilize and exposing it to have that victory. And then just a couple of things I wanted to say at this moment in terms of what I think it means to have a socialist orientation around migrant rights and migrant defense, because we've seen the LAPD present at some of the raids. Their excuse is that they're engaged in public safety, that they're responding to calls from the FBI because the FBI is just so scared of protesters that they have to call the LAPD in to help them, or that they're only engaged in activities that are not the actual arrest of immigrants. And all of those are just not valid reasons. There's no reason the LAPD should be present at any of the raids. So I do think as socialists, it's an opportunity to really also further our push for abolition, really put forward the narrative that it's not actually law enforcement that keeps us safe at all. In fact, they make things more dangerous. They're the ones who escalate actions and violence. And so as we're thinking about defending immigrants, I know many of us might be in cities where there's still ongoing budget fights around law enforcement. So there's definitely that intersection and making sure that law enforcement plays no role in immigration enforcement. And then just the other thing to mention is, as I alluded to at the beginning, many of the workers picked up are low-income immigrants. Some of the ones picked up at a garment factory also have pending wage claims because employers have been engaged in wage theft. So just thinking about all these intersections in terms of capitalism, exploitation of labor, as well as the state violence, the state repression that immigrants are facing. And so it's not just one issue. This has just gone to the forefront because of the very sensationalistic ICE raids, but just thinking about also how at many opportunities or any given moment, how can we also work with immigrants who are also bearing the brunt of capitalist exploitation and support them in other types of campaigns to make sure that they have justice in all aspects of their lives, not just around immigration status. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Shuming. And again, congrats, at least for the public pressure in Glendale. That's at least a sigh of relief in some respects. But agreed, we have to continue to show the interconnectedness of our struggles and continue to fight for these against these contracts that are enabling ICE to come into our communities. And that's an appropriate pivot to going over to Tristan to talk about the Boycott of Velo campaign.
Hey, thank you, everybody. And thank you especially to Christian and others here of the International Migrant Rights Working Group who pivoted quickly, invited on some of our comrades from Los Angeles and other places to be on this call. I'm the co-chair along with Marilia of this working group. This is our biggest call ever, so thanks everybody for blowing us out of the water tonight. And I'm here to invite you to be part of the first nationwide strategic campaign of the International Migrant Rights Working Group, which is the nationwide boycott of Avelo Airlines. If you haven't heard, Avelo Airlines is the first passenger airline, commercial airline, to rent out for $150 million, 1/10 of its air fleet to do ICE flights. They've been based out of Burbank, California for a while, are now based out of Houston. And I'm going to be talking for just a couple of minutes about how you can plug in and how we can make an example out of this airline so that other actors in private industry do not make the same decision that they made. So the International Migrant Rights Working Group has existed for a little bit less than a year, coming out of the International Committee, and we've been building with dozens of chapters. And one of the principles on which we've been preparing to support chapters in local organizing work is the recognition that the Department of Homeland Security has made threats and has made promises far beyond its own organizational and operational capacity. In order to deliver on the threats that they have made, they require local law enforcement to participate. They require a growth of the Department of Homeland Security itself, and they require the cooperation of private industry. I think we've already heard just now of the types of victories that we need to be fighting for to stop the deputizing of local law enforcement, local sheriff's offices, state Department of Corrections. We need to isolate DHS and prevent them from gaining access to the vast operational capacity they currently do not have access to. We also need to stop them from raising funds and hiring new agents. This is what the budget reconciliation fight is all about today in Congress. And what this campaign, this boycott is about is stopping and isolating and making an example of and preventing the cooperation of private industry in the deportation regime. I'm coming from Murfreesboro, Tennessee, but I'm based in Nashville. We have 5 flights from Avelo Airlines flying out of Nashville, and we're gathering together a coalition in Nashville, along with and joining the 25 chapters of DSA that have already begun this process in about half of the destination cities that Avelo flies to. There have been protests in 40 cities nationwide over the last 2 months since the boycott began. In New Haven, Connecticut, where Connecticut DSA was the first chapter to come on in support of the New Haven Immigrant Coalition. We had a call with both of those, Connecticut DSA as well as the New Haven Immigrant Coalition and national partners about a week ago on June 2nd to launch DSA's joining this nationwide campaign. Yesterday in Nashville, Avelo put up its first billboard selling flights between Nashville and 5 destinations. We're getting ready to get 10,000 people in our city to pledge that they will not buy a single ticket. We're going to get our city council to agree to respect that picket line. We're going to get organizations to sign on to the endorsement, including local labor. And we're going to start protesting at the BNA airport, which has tripled in size in the last 4 years. We're going to take on this airline here, along with the other 30 cities that have already begun. And we want people to know there is a place in this boycott. If you're one of those destination cities, check it out. If you're not in one of those destination cities, then you too are important. Example, Brownsville, Texas. They had a flight that went to Brownsville, but they cut it over the summer. If you are in Brownsville, go to your city council, pass a resolution saying Novello is not welcome back. If you're in a place that they have not gone yet, your city council or your state legislature can promise never to do business with them. There is a place for all of us in creating a wave of moral outrage against this outsourcing of the deportation regime into the corporate world, and demonstrate to American Airlines, to United, to Delta, that we will do the same thing to them if they follow suit. So you can see in the chat, if it hasn't been dropped yet, there is a way you can click a button and you can send an email to 40 of the top board members, management, and CEO in Houston, Andrew Levy of the Avelo Airlines corporate structure. It also sends it to some of the people who are financing Avelo out of Midtown Manhattan, the Jeffries Group. Click that button. It's already gotten 10,000 letters. If we've got 500 people on the call, we can double that number today. The last thing that I'll say is that there's a toolkit that is also in the chat. If you are interested in getting involved in this boycott, just go in there and you can see, I think it's about 10 pages, gives you template resolutions. It gives you contact information for us to get involved in the nationwide coordination process. And it also gives you a ton of information from national partners like Siembra North Carolina, like the New Haven Immigrant Coalition, who have been leading this boycott over the last 2 months. And we invite everybody to get involved. Let's win this boycott. We're going to have a summit for chapter leaders at the National Convention in August in Chicago, and we invite everybody to send a representative to bring down, we're going to bankrupt this airline or we're going to break their contract.
Thank you so much, Tristan. And hell yeah, we are absolutely going to do that, but we can only do that if you sign up to support wherever you're joining us from. Again, there are many hubs. I saw some folks getting connected from Connecticut and from Houston. Again, some of the major Avelo hubs, but this is how we can do that coordinated work together. And also the beauty of a national organization, and that we're able to share resources and talk about various tactics and come together and really figure out a way to accomplish our goals, which is making sure that Avelo learns the true price of trying to do business with ICE, which is, done out of here. I am going to now switch things up a bit and head over to my home state of Texas, specifically San Antonio, and hear from Austin, which not to be confused with the city of Austin, but from San Antonio, to talk about the work that their chapter is doing around court accompaniment.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm Austin Lopez. I'm a part of the Immigration Working Group in San Antonio, the heart of Texas. And I just want to share with you some recent successes that our chapter has had. When you're listening to me, I think one thing you should know is I was not involved in this kind of work about 3-4 months ago. I knew very little about it, right? I was passionate. I knew where I stood. I think we all knew that the Trump administration, that the kind of tip of the spear for their unconstitutional and violent harassment of our neighbors was going to come here. And so, I had anticipated that, but I was not involved in any way in an organizing or a professional capacity. So I want people to understand that if you do not have a lot of experience in this, just get in touch and get started, because There's a place for you, trust me. So I want to kind of start off this description of what we've been working on with a quote from a famous turn of the 20th century boxer named Sam Langford. So he had a very basic ring strategy when it came to fighting, right? He said, what the opponent wants to do, don't let them do it, right? And so, describing this court accompaniment strategy, I hope that people kind of keep that quote in mind because essentially what folks on this talk have alluded to is the fact that at this current moment, DHS does not have the operational capacity to reach the kinds of quotas that the Trump administration has promised its constituents, right? Starting in, around Memorial Day, Trump put this 3,000 deportations a day quota. And if you do the math for a city like San Antonio, we have 2 million people. That might come out to about 20, 30, even 40 deportations a day. Just a little bit of background on San Antonio. It we have, I think, over 200,000 migrants in the city. And in certain industries like restaurants and construction, the percentage of undocumented immigrants as part of the workforce can reach 25, 30%, right? Um, so ICE, like any city, they have a priority and they have a goal to essentially make their job as easy as possible. And they've attempted to pursue a series of tactics that, if we were not to resist them, they would be able to get away with relatively easily. One example is going to a restaurant and asking to have access to the kitchen, ask around, identify uh, people's legal status, and deporting people from restaurants. Another one would be to talk to the U.S. Marshals that are in schools in Texas and try to get some understanding of whose parents are undocumented immigrants, right? Now, that basic rapid response function is super important at the very beginning because essentially, when you have a community that's mobilized and knows their rights, they cannot engage in these sort of opportunistic raids and things like that. So, what we ended up seeing pretty recently was a shift in tactics to the courts. And the reason why this is beneficial to them and the reason why we have to be there and we have to be prepared to stop them is because when people go to their immigration review, ICE will wait for a court to be dismissed. They know who the judges are who are sympathetic to their goals. They will wait literally in the hallways of a court and they will detain people immediately, get 15 or 20 people on a bus, get them detained or deported right there. So there was about a week or 2 week period last month when they tried to do this to meet these quotas. And immediately through our rapid response network, we got word from attorneys that they needed backup. And luckily, through coalitions that we have with groups like San Antonio Stands, we were in touch and we were prepared to supply a whole bunch of volunteers to get to the court, right? And so essentially, we had three essential roles. One was for attorneys. Obviously, attorneys, they do what they're going to do. They're going to do the best job that they can in maximizing the respondents' chances of remaining in the country. Then we had legal observers. And finally, at the end, we had parking lots, people in the parking lot doing Know Your Rights, right? And so the key to this is the ICE agents are not trying to get a lot of media attention. We are essentially imposing costs on every single action that they want to take in order to reach that quota, right? So if we have people who are filming or who are recording, right, we're able to, first of all, establish that the people are indeed have a reasonable fear of returning to their country. We can have that on camera. We can get the names of people who are being detained and reach out to their families. And of course, we're bringing media attention to this issue. So every single step of the way, when ICE tries to make it easy, we're we're making it harder for them, right? Outside things get a little more interesting because there are a lot of people who are unrepresented and they're entering their court date and they don't understand or they don't know that ICE is in the building. And so the Spanish speakers who are members of the chapter have been able to reach people outside prior to entering the building, get them to call and get them to switch their hearing to a virtual hearing, which makes them essentially safe from being ambushed that day in court, right? And so with this strategy, with this focus on the courts, what initially we were seeing maybe 15 or 20 people a day being deported from the courts. When we worked with local partners and we got volunteers to the court to occupy these roles and to essentially keep an eye on ICE, we saw those deportations and those detentions plummet. And there were days when nobody was put on a bus. So just imagine it from their perspective, going from 15 to 20 detentions a day to almost none with this strategy, right? And I think that the key here is um, you need to have intelligence and have a rapid response network up so that you're able to anticipate what the strategy is, right? And then once you identify that point that they think it's going to be easy, with a lot of these community partners, you're able to create the force structure that you need and get your membership mobilized and get your membership there to start learning on the job, essentially. So one thing that I really just want to add about this is, in addition to the success that we've seen, and we even had situations where ICE left. They tried to go to a restaurant and like try to harass people there. Somebody called a rapid response line, and then those people showed up and prevented them from their second or their third location. And then they didn't take nearly as many people in as they wanted to that day. The other thing that this does is it gives, at the very basic level, it gives your membership an opportunity to engage very directly with the legal system, to look the opponent in the face, to see the families that are suffering from this. And that is where we want to really actually develop our leadership. I mean, we even had people who now they're learning how to talk to media, right? Because media shows up and, the membership who were just volunteering that day, now they're getting experience working with the media. So I think I'm going to leave it there. For Texas folks, we want to follow up and talk on the state level at a future date. Um, there might be some materials in the chat, but thank you for your time and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak.
Thank you so much, Austin. Again, super important work. I think one thing that we found of having to sort of shift tactics and terrains is the fact that, ICE is trying to expand and capture as much existing infrastructure as possible because they can't do what they're promising their base of supporters, which is deporting millions and millions of people. And so for us, our job is to disrupt that at every possible moment, to make sure that we're protecting our communities, and particularly in areas where they've traditionally not been, a presence. Like the courthouse stuff is new, going into the sensitive locations with the revocation of sensitive locations that Trump did, going into office, with schools, again, graduations. They know where people are, and they're headed there specifically to create fear and don't care about doing it in front of people's children. They don't care about putting kids in zip ties and handcuffs. They don't care. They are seeking that sort of bottom line. And again, it's that type of violence that can be really devastating for all of our public spaces and really undermines our democracy in so many various ways. And a lot of folks I know are joining tonight because they're seeing what's happening in LA. They're seeing folks really coming together to protect Los Angeles from this type of disruptive behavior, specifically from ICE. And so with that, I'm going to pass it over to Jen and Sarai, who are joining us from LA, from our LA chapter, to talk about what's been going on, what's happening, and how you can show support.
Hi, so I'm Sarai. I'm from the Immigration Working Group from our LA chapter. So right now, what would have been happening at Los Angeles before this weekend was reports of arrests at court. So immigration has basically abused DHS's prosecutorial discretion and began dismissing cases in order to subject people to expedited removal. Expedited removal is a type of deportation process that doesn't afford someone the opportunity to see a judge, and they can get quickly deported with no due process. And the problem is that Trump's executive order was from months ago, stating that anyone who has been in the US for less than 2 years is subject to this streamlined deportation. But now they're beginning to violate due process rights even further by dismissing cases, despite the fact that someone may have submitted an asylum application, despite the fact that they fear returning to home country. DHS attorneys are dismissing cases and arresting them in court, in the hallways, waiting rooms, or even outside of the building or in parking lots, and subjecting them to horrific conditions in the LA Metro Detention Center. So this was before this weekend. Now, during this weekend and up until this point, our city is currently under attack. As you may know, ICE is currently terrorizing our city with a mass operation, kidnapping factory workers, carwacheros, day laborers, students, and parents, and ripping families apart. And again, subjecting them to horrific conditions in the detention centers. So we have been developing our rapid response network, and Jen is going to introduce that for you all.
Hi everyone, my name is Jen. I am a member of DSA LA Steering Committee and also a member of the Immigration Justice Working Group. And I'm going to share a slide. Give me 1 second. All right, so here in LA, before this weekend, what we've been doing as a chapter has been trying to build up our capacity to be rapid responders. KYRs, also known as Know Your Rights, are important because we can teach each other, our neighbors, and our community members their rights, and in turn, we can protect our communities. So this is why we thought that, building, we'll explain the structure in a bit, but building a structure that included KYRs with our rapid response network was important because when we use our rights, we are holding the government accountable. So what is the LA Rapid Response Network? So it's a coalition of immigrant rights organizations, unions, DSA LA, community members, and other organizations. And the way that it is structured is that it has general meetings, and then we also have several committees. So some of the committees are the organizing committees, communication, and legal. And one of the unique aspects of the LA Rapid Response Network is that it has a legal committee of attorneys that are ready to respond with the folks who are arrested. And so I'm going to hand it over to Sarai so she can explain more about the Rapid Response Network.
So once someone joins the Rapid Response Network, they're added to their neighborhood's Signal chat. There are different Signal chats for different sectors of the county. And we receive tips of ICE sightings in these chats. We send rapid responders to verify the tip. And if the tip is verified, the network is activated and roles are assigned. So the roles of the rapid responder is to document ICE activity, inform our neighbors of their rights, and in case of an arrest, contact a person that they trust in order to connect them with legal help. Ultimately, an arrest may still occur, but a first responder can provide the legal team with crucial information, enabling them to support the detained person and potentially pursue legal action to hold the government accountable for any unlawful conduct or violation of constitutional rights.
Thank you, Sarai. So once we decided to be part of the LA Rapids Response Network, we decided to come up with a structure where we can have a socialist lens to the KYR and the training for rapid response. So we adapted the training that Ben had created by Chirla, who is the organization that started the LA Rapids Response Network. And our training is unique. So we have a reading or a discussion to discuss how we can respond as socialists to the current moment. And we also include information about wins and an analysis of media in our training. So our trainings are divided into 3 separate trainings. We have train the trainer, and the purpose of this training is so that we can get members trained up so they can train more people, and so that then they can be training folks in their respective branches or committees so that those folks in those committees or branches can be rapid responders. We also have the general KYR and rapid response training, which is what these trainers would do. So once members do this training, they're plugged into their neighborhood's rapid response signal chat, and we're trying to get as many members possible trained up because we do not have enough people to respond to the attacks that are happening all over the city.
DSA LA members responded to active ICE raids happening all throughout Los Angeles this past weekend. Members quickly activated and show up to Ambience, a clothing store and warehouse in the fashion district that was targeted by ICE. The response quickly developed into a direct action in protest of the raid, and outside of the fashion warehouse, DSA LA members collaborated with others to connect the families of the detained workers with legal resources. Besides this, we also do Know Your Rights training for the community, trainings for DSA LA and community members. We have hosted Know Your Rights trainings at community centers such as Scribble, based in Highland Park, and we are receiving multiple requests for these trainings from libraries, city council districts, and community centers. There is currently a very high demand for these trainings. So our events such as the Train the Trainer are our opportunity to expand our capacity so that we can host more of these events. We disseminate very crucial information that can prevent arrests, and it's just very important that people know their rights so that they can defend themselves against this fascist government. If anyone here is from LA and who would like to get involved and you're not a member yet, I would highly recommend joining the LA chapter, and you can get involved in the immigration working group if you would like to join us.
Thank you so much, Jen Sarai, for all that information. There are a lot of questions that I think will probably get answered here with our next and final speaker, Marilia, who is the other co-chair of the International Migrant Rights Working Group, is going to talk a little bit about some of the resources and support that we currently have, including some upcoming trainings. I saw some folks asking about potential trainings. There's a lot of trainings on the horizon. So I'm going to pass it over to Marilia to share all of that information, let you know how you can get involved, and close this out.
Thanks, Christian. Thanks everybody for coming out. This is amazing. It's really great to see people, activated, ready to show up for our communities. My name's Marilia, I, she, they pronouns. I'm in San Diego, and I'm one of the co-chairs of the working group. Just a little bit about myself. I'm an immigrant from Brazil. I came here with my family when I was young and grew up undocumented. So a lot of this really hits home for me. But I'm here to talk about the real ways in which you can do this work and the way that it's already happening in DSA across the country. As you can see in this slide, Houston is going to be first up. But basically, yeah, there's a lot of work that's already happening in DSA. And we have our immigrant rights working group. That's a national working group that's been working with chapters across the country to to scale up the work that people want to do, to build relationships in their cities. And there's a place for everybody in this movement, whether you're just joining DSA, whether you've been in DSA and maybe haven't been involved in a bit. There's real work happening on the ground. So I'm going to share some of the work that's happening because it's great and it's just an example of the stuff that DSA is doing that's real. So first up, we have Houston. I just wanted to highlight that Houston has been doing amazing work, working in partnership with local groups, showing up to protests. They have been supporting on the Avelo Airlines campaign, and they were there just this weekend or the last weekend supporting the boycott. And then we can go to the next slide. You get a chance. Thank you. Then we have New Jersey, that's been doing, for years, has been doing amazing work to fight against detention centers, working with partners, working with other groups, coalitional work, just amazing work that has been building for a very long time. So shout out to North New Jersey. Next slide, please. Wanted to shout out Nashville. Nashville DSA, in coordination with Migra Watch there, has been doing, Music City Migra Watch has been doing amazing work. If you've seen what's been happening in Tennessee with the deputizing of, state police, pulling people over, this is like a real solid, concrete example of how ICE Watch looks on the ground, how it looks online. So these are just a couple of screen caps I grabbed from some of the work that this ICE Watchers group is doing. And that's something that, many chapters are exploring in DSA in collaboration with other groups. So definitely something that we recommend folks do in collaboration with other groups. And next slide, please. And I wanted to shout out San Diego, which is my chapter. We've been building our relationships with people on the ground. It's been, it's been a long road. But we're kind of mobilizing in different ways. We've been mobilizing where it's necessary, when the moment calls for it. Also, we are also running an education campaign to pressure one of our school boards to pass sanctuary policies in a very right-wing kind of district here. And also doing really great coalitional work with partners across San Diego to defund surveillance that is collaborating with ICE. So shouting out San Diego here. And next slide. And just here is the link to join our working group. So if you go to this link, you'll find the link to join the working group. If you're in a chapter, you'll see a link to join our chapter support program where we partner people up with coaches who can help your chapter develop this work. And also some of the upcoming calls that we have include we have a call where if you're just starting out in this work, or whether you've been doing it for a while and you're looking for a next step, to do an assessment of kind of the work that's happening in your city and how you can get plugged in. And we can close out the slides when you get a chance, Eric. And yeah, I just wanted to say, thanks everybody for coming out, for standing with your community, standing with our communities. This administration really wants us to be scared and to feel paralyzed and like there's nothing we can do. And the truth is that we need to stay focused, we need to organize, and we need to show up in solidarity with our communities, and that's the way that we're gonna fight this. So join DSA. There's gonna be some links that are continuing to be dropped in the chat, with opportunities to join the support program, to join DSA. Join DSA, join your local chapter. If you can't If there's no chapter, start a chapter. If you can't start a chapter, look for all the groups that are already doing this work in your area and, show up, see what you can do, and build that trust. And yeah, just want to say thanks everybody for coming out. I don't know if you want to add anything else, Christian, but.
No, that's it. Thank you so much to everybody who joined us, who let us know what work is going on in your part of the country. And again, thank you everyone who joined tonight in the chat. Again, if you have not joined DSA, but you were thinking about joining DSA, it's dsausa.org/join. We need organization in this moment. We need solidarity in this moment. And the only way we're going to do that, the only way we're going to, make sure to abolish ICE is doing that together. So solidarity, everybody, please take care, and have a good night.
Hey yo. Y va de nuevo mi Tony. Camarada, somos la santa carnal. Hey, W Beats.